Hey creative, so I am not going to bore you with the story of how this particular video was flagged as a copyright because of the background music. But anyways, this two-piece is what we are recreating, and this video is based on the sketch version. So thank you for joining me. Don't forget to subscribe before you leave this video if you're new, and let's go ahead and start drafting. Okay, so on my cutting table here, I have my pattern paper, and I'm just going to show you guys what we need to do next. So I'm going to fold my pattern paper into two. Now we're going to cut the front pattern, and you need to fold your pattern paper into two because something is going to be happening. Okay, we're going to be marking the darts and we're going to be creating a slit. Okay, so go ahead and fold your pattern paper into two. Very important. Now the width of my pattern paper is my round hip divided by 4 plus 1.5 inch allowance. Okay, you see the measurement is on the screen. I divided that by 4, my round hip, and I added 1.5 inch allowance. Now the length of my skirt is going to be 18 inches. That is how long my skirt is going to be. So go ahead and mark how long you want your skirt to be. Okay, that is what I'm indicating here, and this is where the length is going to be. God, today's weather is so beautiful right now as I'm making this voice note. Go ahead. Okay, so here is going to be my waist point. The top of the pattern paper is the waist point by default, so I'll place my tape from the waist point and go down to mark my hip point. And my hip point is going to be 10 inches, and most times I use 10 inches when I'm not creating a band, but I'm creating a band for this skirt, but I want it to be really high waist. Okay, so really high waist. Now we're going to start dividing the round measurement by 4, and the first one is going to be the round waist. I'm going to divide my round waist into 4. The measurement is on the screen. Go ahead and divide your round waist by 4 and mark this down on your pattern paper exactly where I'm marking mine. Okay, now I'll go down to the hip. I'll divide my round hip by 4 and I'll mark this down on the hip line. So this is the hip line, and this is where my round hip will sit. Now what I have on my hip, I'll be marking on my length. Okay, so I'll first of all connect my hip measurement to the waist, and I'll move down to my length. I'll mark the exact same measurement I have on my hip. Okay, I'm going to take it down, and that is it. Okay, so I marked 10.5 on my hip. I'm marking 10.5 on my length because that is my round hip divided by 4. So you go ahead and do this. Do exactly what I just did, and you're just going to have your pattern paper looking like mine. If you're a hippie, it's going to be looking bigger than mine. So the next we're going to do is mark out the dart, and for the dart I'm going to divide my nipple to nipple by 2 and mark this down. Okay, my nipple to nipple is 8 divided by 2 gives you 4. So this is 4. I'll mark 4 on all points. I'll mark on the waist. I'll mark this on the hip. I'll go ahead and mark this on the length. Okay, so why we are doing this is because we're about to create the slit and also mark the dart. So we're marking the dart first, and then we're going to create the slit. Now this is the apex line, which is the nipple to nipple divided by 2, and I'm going to mark my waist dart. From the waist, I'll come down by 4 inches. See where my tape is, so just come down, mark 4 inches or 5 inches if you're bigger than me, and from this point I'm going to create my dart. So I'll mark half an inch here. This is half an inch how it looks on your tape. Okay, I'll mark this here, and then I'll mark half an inch this way. Okay, this is all sticking the darts. Now just see what I am doing. Okay, do exactly what I'm doing. From the top of my pattern paper where my waist is sitting, I'm marking my darts, and I'll connect those darts now to the 4 inches I have down here. Remember, we came down by 4 inches on that apex line before marking the dart. So that is what I'm doing right about now. So this is my dart for the front pattern. And now let's mark the slits. I told you guys we're going to be marking everything on the same line. Now for the slits, I'm going to be going up by 6 inches, okay, from the base where the length is. On the apex line, I'll place my tape and go up by 6 inches, and this is me marking for the slits. So I don't want to confuse you, so I'm just going to place my tape here, and you see me stop at 6 inches, and I'm marking this down. And now at this point, go ahead and determine how open you want your slits to be. That's what I want to do. So I'm going to be marking 1 inch on each side of the apex line, okay? So I want my slit to be open after sewing. So that is why I'm doing this. I want that particular part of where my slit is going to sit, I want that to be open. I'm marking 1 inch here and I'm marking 1 inch here. And this is just going to make up for how open I want it to be. So I'll connect those 1 inch now to the 6 inches upwards here, the slit stop point. This is really, really easy if you just pay good attention to what I'm doing, as in, trust me, it is easy, okay? Now I have that. I'm going to now mark 1 inch allowance on all points, 1 inch. So this is going to be for both the ease allowance or the sewing allowance. This 1 inch is just going to make up for those, okay? And now I'm going to connect and cut. So please let me know if you were able to understand to this point, okay? I know I talk really fast, but my hands too are showing you what to do. They're illustrating what to do. So if you don't want to follow my voice, follow my hand illustration. So now I'm just going to go ahead and cut out my pattern. And this is going to be the front pattern. And cutting the back pattern is actually really, really easy, okay? So once you have your front pattern, your back pattern just have to be with extra 2 inches allowance for zip, and that's it, or 1.5 inches allowance for zip. So what we're going to do, we're going to transfer the notches. We're going to transfer our darts to the other side of the pattern, okay? So I'm transferring my darts to the other side and I'm making notches, okay? On those 1/2 inch, that's where I'm making these notches. And I'm going to transfer it. So see the point, I'm going to come down by 4 inches because that's what we did on the other side. I'll bring it down and then I'll rule my darts. That is why I made those 3 notches, okay, to transfer my darts from this side to this side, from like the left leg to the right leg, okay? I hope you guys understand. So now we're just going to go ahead and cut the back pattern. Okay, so what I'm going to do is, since I have my front pattern on the pattern paper, for the back, I'm going to be cutting directly on the fabric, and I'll show you guys how we're going to be doing this, okay? So I have my fabric here folded into 2. This is crepe. For those of you that always ask, this is crepe. And I'm going to go ahead and show you guys the length. I'm going to mark the length 18 inches before I place my pattern paper, okay? And you guys, the width of this fabric here is really, really wider than the front pattern because I'm going to be marking my zip allowance. So I made it wider than the front pattern. And I'm going to be showing you guys what is going to happen next. From this point, I'm going to mark 1.5 inch in, and this is going to be for my zip allowance, okay? So this is why I felt like, okay, let me just mark this directly on the fabric. I just want to take my zip allowance and then I'll place that front pattern on this fabric and just trace. So this is going to be for my zip allowance, and I'm just going to demarcate the line here so we don't touch it when we're tracing the front on this fabric, okay? So this is the front pattern, and see me place the front pattern after that zip allowance line. Like I said, it is really easy to make your back pattern or back piece. All you have to do is trace your front on your pattern paper or on your fabric, okay? Making sure that particular pattern or fabric has zip allowance. So I pinned my pattern paper to my fabric, and now I'm going to trace my front piece on this fabric. So what I'm doing now is I'm going to transfer the darts with the chalk. I'm just marking out those 3 lines, the apex line, the dart line, and I'm just going to cut. Okay, so what we just did is transfer that, and now what we're doing now is cut, tracing the front pattern on this fabric. And now what I just did is I just extended my hip line out to the fabric, and what I'll do now is I'll adjust the zip allowance before I take off my pattern. Now on the length I'm going to mark 1 inch, on the waist I'm going to mark 1 inch, and then I'm going to connect those points to the hip like this. Now what is happening is on the hip the allowance for the zip is still the same, the 1.5, but on the waist I have 1 inch, and on the length I have 1 inch. Okay, I'm just going to go ahead and cut. So why I did that was to indicate that that was the wrong side, so that when I'm sewing I know where to sew. Okay, so I'm making notches of the darts. I'm just notching out the darts. So on the front I'm going to be cutting out the dart and the slit. Okay, I'm just going to cut out the dart and the slit on the pattern before I cut this on the fabric. So I'm going to cut out the dart and I'm cutting out the slits because I want to cut this particular pattern on my fabric, and I need to take out the darts and the slits. Okay, so now this is the pattern I'm going to be cutting on the fabric. This is how the pattern is going to be looking for the front, and now I can cut this out on the fabric. Now there is no need for you to fold your fabric into 2 when you're cutting the front piece. Just bring out your fabric, lay it straight like this, and place your pattern paper like this. Now see the way I'm placing my pattern paper. I'm going to make sure that there is allowance at this point. I'm adding 1/2 inch allowance to this point because we're going to be attaching it together with the other side, and we need to, you have the sewing allowance. Okay, so I'm just going to go ahead and cut. So make sure you notch the dart. Okay, make sure you notch the dart so that when you're sewing you know where to sew in when you're sewing for your dart. Okay, always do that. Notch your dart, transfer that, always do that. Okay, so this is my front piece and I'm indicating the wrong side so that when I'm sewing I know where to sew. Okay, you always sew on the wrong side of the fabric. So I'm going to place it like this, and I will go sew by the 1/2 inch allowance I left. Okay, so I'm just going to sew like this. And then before I go sew, I will indicate the place I'll stop when I want to create my slit. Okay, the stop point of my slit. Okay, or the start point, any of them, the stop point of my slit. I'm just going to indicate it, and then I'll go sew. And this is the back piece. I'll go sew in the zip. I'll go sew by 1 inch from the top of the fabric down to the length. So where I'm ironing right now is where the slit is sitting and where I have the other darts. So I'm just ironing this so it lays really flat. So this is the front piece, and this is how the front piece is looking. Okay, now I'm going to be dropping the front waistline by half an inch, the center front. That is why I folded my fabric into two, so I can drop the waistline, the center front waistline, by 1 inch. So that's what I'm doing right now. I've marked 1 inch down, and I'll mark 3 inches in. So 1 inch down from the center front, and I'll mark 3 inches in. And I'll connect both points together now. This has just enabled me to drop the front waistline where we have the center front, the middle of that point. We'll just want to drop that by 1 inch, so that when we create the band, it's just going to sit really nice. Okay, so it's going to sit nicely. It's going to really fit the waist. So this is how it looks after doing that. And now I'm just going to go ahead and iron out my back piece. This is my back piece. I have the darts sewn in. So go ahead and cross check if you've done all these things that I have done. See, the dart is sewn in, the zip side is sewn in, and I'm just going to iron this out. And once I'm done ironing, I'll place the front piece and the back piece together and go sew. This is the front piece I'm holding here. You can see the slits on the side. So I'll place it right side, facing right side, and I'll go sew this. So I'll sew this, I'll sew in the sides, and I'll show you guys the results. Now for the band, this is the fabric for the band. I cut out 5 inches fabric for band, and the length for my band is 5 inches already. I said that, and the width is my round waist plus extra 5 inches. Okay, so what I'll do is I'll iron in half an inch on the base of the band and also on the top of the band. I'll just iron in half an inch. And then on the top here too, I'll iron half an inch. Now because of this fabric is 5 inches wide, I just did half an inch on the base and half an inch on the top. That means 1 inch is gone. Now if I fold this into 2 equal parts, my band is going to be 2 inches wide. So half an inch here, half an inch here. Now fold this into 2 equal parts like this, and I'm just going to have 2 inches width of a band. Okay, so I'm just going to iron this and take the band to go sew on my skirt waistline. So this is the result. Let's go ahead and open up the back zip. So open up to the point where your zip is going to stop. I'll place the tape from the waistline and I'll stop by 6 inches. That is where my zip is going to be stopping. 6 inches down. I'll go ahead and use my seam ripper to open this up to that point, 6 inches. And now I'll just take this and go attach to my band. I'll be sewing my band from the wrong side, then I'll now top stitch on the right side. So I'll place the half an inch like this on the waist. See, this is one of the half an inch. I'll place it like this on the waist, and I'll go sew this in by the half an inch line. I'll follow the line, and then I'll top stitch this side on the front. Okay, and this will just automatically create a beautiful finish waistline. So I was done with that process, and now I'm going to go ahead and attach my zip. Okay, so I'll go attach my zip, and that is done. Now all we have to do is use the hemming gum to close in the slits and also the base of the skirt. Now I went ahead to weave the raw edges of my fabric so that it has this clean finish. So after weaving, now all I have to do is just go ahead and use my hemming gum on this. Okay, so that's what I'll be doing. I'll use hemming gum and close this. Okay, Now what I was trying to show you here is if you don't have a weaving machine, or you can't go out to the market and go weave, just go ahead and double fold your fabric and sew by 1/4 inch, okay? But then if you have a weaving machine, go ahead and weave the edges and just use your hemming gum and fold once with the hemming gum, okay? And your skirt is going to be looking like a ready-made skirt if you follow all this process. Please let me know in the comment section if you enjoyed the video, and please do not forget to subscribe if you're new, and I'll be seeing you guys on the next video that was flagged copyright, which was the top version of the skirt. So yeah, I'll see you guys on that video. And yeah, bye for now. Love and light to you wherever you are. I'll see you guys. Love you guys so much. Love you guys so much. Bye.